So we've got the new Lunar Lake, and you've probably seen all the hype behind it and a lot of other videos. Well, here's my take now with the Zenbook S14 from ASUS. So Intel's new AI chip that I have is the Core Ultra 9. It's the 288V. Yes, the naming has kind of changed a little bit again. And the art graphics in this is the top version, so it's the 140V. I've got 32 gigabytes of very fast LPDDR5X RAM that's running at 8,500 megatransfers plus, so really quick. A 3K OLED screen that's 120 Hertz, all in a body that only weighs here 1.2 kilos and is 1.1 centimeters thick, so really good. It's got a 72 watt hour battery, 1 terabyte of storage, runs Windows 11 Pro, and I'll show you what it's all about, the Zenbook S14 from ASUS and the new Lunar Lake chip. So this is what is included, a 65 watt charger. It is nice and small, and it happens to be the exact same charger as the Ally X, which is great. It just means when I travel with both of these, I just need this single charger. Now it does weigh 1.2 kilos and it's 1.1 centimeters the thickness of it, which is very good. So along the top here, we have that Ceraluminum or Ceraluminum here finish to it. Now I like it because it's like a matte finish to it. However, it's very resistant. It's really durable, and I love these lines in it. I do like the style of it. I think they're really high quality notebooks, ultrabooks, and the Zenbook branding right here is tiny. It's not taking up the whole back of it or anything, so it looks good. Now this is what they call their Scandinavian white, even though this is kind of, well, it's basically like a gray, but it looks a little bit like, say, the Snow Mountain kind of thing here, and when you open it up, it's a very light color. Now, normally, I'm not a big fan of the keycaps being white, but they are dark here. And this, of course, is a backlit keyboard, which is a very bright one. It's very clear. So that's the maximum brightness. And even with my studio lights on now, you can see just how bright that is. Turning those lights off, look at how clear this is. It's so good, and it's not blinding either on this top setting. So if I adjust it and put this onto the low setting again, so I'll just turn that down to, there we go, that's the first setting, still very good, really nice and clear. Now, like what I've seen with the Zenbook S16, the other models, we do have this at the top here. So there are these CNC machined little holes at the top. Not only does it look good, it does have a proper actual purpose to it. That is, it lets out heat through the tiny little holes. And we've got the ASUS logo right there. The key travel, now this is 1.1 millimeters, and I have done some typing on this keyboard. I think it feels very good. It's solid pressing down. There really isn't that much flex at all. Now, if I press really hard, yes, I can make it bend in a little bit. But under normal typing pressure, no, it's not going to be a problem. We do have the half-size arrow up and down keys. That is a little bit unfortunate there. The power key is, I wish it was separated away from the keyboard, so they put it up here somewhere, just so you don't accidentally tap it. But I've not done that in the whole time I've been using it, which is fine. It's good. I haven't really had any issues with it, and it's a little bit more the resistance of it than the other buttons too, which does help. So I don't think anyone's going to be accidentally triggering that. So all up, very good. But what about that touchpad? This touchpad, very smooth, supports their gestures. So right on the edges, for example, I can control the brightness right here. And it's a very nice smooth surface, very accurate. The mouse cursor moves about. I'll see if I can show you that now. There it is. That when I move, it's not one of those ones that's going to jump about. And I definitely don't feel like I'm forced really to plug in a mouse. No, I could happily use this touchpad right here. I think it's a really good one. And lately from ASUS, they have been excellent. Their keyboards, their touchpads, overall build quality is really good. Now, there's nothing that's upgradable within this, so if you're thinking about that you could just go and add more RAM to it, no. It's soldered on RAM, so that LPDDR5X RAM, running at very high speeds too. It's all soldered on. I've got 32 gigabytes with this, a terabyte of storage, and you cannot spec, at the time of this video at least, a 2 terabyte model or a 64 gigabyte RAM model. Now, if you want the extra storage, you'll have to open this up and then you can put in another SSD. Sadly, there's no second SSD slot and the wireless card's all soldered on. So really no upgrades apart from the SSD. Battery within it is 72 watt hours. And I'll let you know at the end of this video what kind of battery life I can get out of this. For ports on the right, we get a USB Type A. This is USB 3.2 Gen 2, and that is the 10 gigabits per second status LED right there for the charging. You can see one of the ports here for the speakers. Speaker sample coming up too, just after this. Two Thunderbolt 4s here, audio 3.5mm with mic support and HDMI 2.1, so that is great. Now there are two cooling fans in this. You can see both of the vents right there, and this is for the wireless antenna, and it does have, yes, Wi-Fi 7 built into it. As for the audio, well, very good. There are 4 speakers in this particular laptop here. For 14 inches, I think it's very good, and especially when you hear how they sound. Harman Kardon certified speakers, and it does support Dolby Atmos. So there's a nice little bit of bass in there. There's some good, decent mids, trebles okay, and the volume also very good. Out of 10, I would rate these as a solid 8 out of 10 speakers. And that display, let's have a look at it. So 14 inches, it's 16 by 10 aspect ratio, and it supports 10 touch points. Now, the response time of the screen is, as you'd expect with an OLED, it's very good. It's 120 hertz. And it is a 0.2 millisecond response time. It's a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, supports Dolby Vision, display HDR, 500 true black, and 500 nits is its peak when in HDR. Now, I measured it in the standard mode, and I managed to get 381 nits. So not quite the 400 that they claim, just a little shy of that, but that's not too bad. So having a look here at the color profile out of the box, the calibration seems to be all right. It's the whites are slightly off, I can see here. And here we've got 100% of sRGB color gamut coverage. NTSC, that's 94%. Adobe, 96, it's excellent, that's very good. And then finally, P3 is 100%. So this is a screen definitely for professionals, and the touch accuracies, as you saw now me using it, touching that tiny little point there to just change over the profile there, was fine, so no issues. It's a great screen resolution. Well, it's 2880 by 1800. Good to see that the webcam is in the standard location, so in the top bezel here. Now this is a full HD webcam. We also do have some 3D infrared webcam, so it does support, yes, Windows Hello. Now, I'll give you a sample of this webcam. The mic's there either side of it, so it's flanked by 2 microphones. Now, this is full HD quality, and the audio you're listening to is from our Zenbook S14. Now, with Windows, you have the studio option, the Windows Studio effects, so I can do this. I can blur the background if maybe it was really messy and I didn't want people to see stuff. You can do that. Now, that is the portrait blur at the moment. I can also turn on the standard blur, which is a lot heavier. It's really blurred things out, so you can hardly make out anything really that I have in the background here. So webcam quality overall, I think, is good. It's going to be great for those conference calls. Here we are in Windows, and we have Windows 11 Pro with this. Now, RAM that is available, just shy of 32 gigabytes, the Ultra 9 288V. And you will see that when it's listed here in the device manager, that it's only 8 times. So that's because, well, not multi-threaded anymore. So that's it. We just got the 8 cores, the 4 performance cores, and then the 4 lower performance cores that it has. So of course we have the NPU on board. That is Intel's AI Boost. And you'll see that Wi-Fi 7, it's the BE201 card. I don't have a Wi-Fi 7 router yet. I believe that most people probably won't either, but one of these days soon I will be upgrading to that and looking forward to the extra speed you can get out of it. And of course the Art Graphics, the 140V, that I'll be talking about soon when we take a look at the performance. Generally speaking, Windows does feel very fast. I've not noticed any lags, any problems or issues, nothing like that. It's incredibly quick. The whole thing seems to operate as if it would have 12 cores maybe and 24 threads, or maybe 16 threads in total, even though it's just the 8 cores now. I'm not noticing anything different until you look at the synthetic benchmarks. So the single core score here, this is very good. Almost nearing the 1900 points mark, and multi-core score here. Lower than expected, but considering it's just the 8 cores, not bad at all, because if it was 16 threads, we'd probably be looking at a score then of around maybe 14,000 here with that. So Cinebench R23 score looking pretty good. What about others? Other synthetic benchmarks? Well, here focusing on the Art Graphics, which of course is our integrated graphics here. A really good score, almost 10,000 for Firestrike. That is impressive for integrated graphics. So we're finally getting there. Intel is definitely catching up, and this is better than AMD. This is better than the Radeon 890M that I've also tested out. And I overclocked that in a mini PC in one of my previous PC videos, and this performance here is bettering that. So it's very good. And remember, this is configured to 30 watts, I believe it is, in the high performance mode, the full speed mode that I do have at the moment. Now, Lunar Lake here with that ARC 140V graphics produces a score that's getting close now to 3,800 for the graphics score in TimeSpy. Again, this is a top result. The only systems I've seen this kind of score are again ones that I've tweaked. So tweaking the RAM timings, maybe overclock the RAM slightly and up the power limit horrendously, like double what this is, to get something close to that. So considering and factoring in the power limit, that's a great score. We're finally starting to get over 4,000 points now with TimeSpy. And this is our OpenCL score, 30,000. This is lower than I expected. I was thinking it would probably be around the 38, 40,000 mark and a bit lower. Not too sure why. It could be down to drivers, optimization, whatnot. And for our synthetic benchmarks, finally, Geekbench 6, very good single core score. Multi, yes, previous generation did do better here. You could get sometimes scores around 14,000, 13, and even up towards, say, 15,000, depending on what power limit the manufacturer has set. So all up, I think for 8 cores, the performance is still excellent, very good. One area I have seen the Intel's choke, and that is video decoding performance. And the good news is it seems to be a lot better. Maybe it's something to do with the drivers. I don't think it's hardware based because the hardware could certainly handle it before. Oh, I can't play the audio codec here. But this Jellyfish file, which is HEVC, 140 megabits per second, does seem to be playing really good. I would almost say flawlessly here, from what I can see on the screen at least. Maybe my video capture card could introduce a few little drop frames or something, but it is extremely good. This is the best I think I've seen Intel handle this, because some of the laptops, there would be like this stutter through the video that was kind of ruining it. Now, 60 frames per second 4K, Sony Swordsmith file. Again, very good performance. So it seems that they've gotten rid of that problem. Whatever was going on before with the previous generations or with Windows that was causing that stutter, gone. So very good video playback, now video decoding at 4K. VP9 decoding, this is using Chrome, and I set it to 4K 60 in HDR clip, and when I did enable the stats, it was very good. It only dropped a frame or two just when I would resize the window. The performance here with the ARC 140V, absolutely flawless. Huge improvement over the last gen, which would sometimes have quite a few more drop frames than this. Keeping on that subject of our 4K performance, what about 4K video editing? So with Adobe Premiere Pro latest version, we can edit, and the timeline is very quick. Basic kind of 4K video here, 100 megabit files here from a Sony camera, all good. It plays back with no lags. The editing is great, and gone are the days that you need a dedicated GPU for 4K video editing. For basic stuff, you don't anymore. Now, if it's a lot of grading, different layers, effects and whatnot, yeah, you would still need a dedicated GPU. But for basic, simple kind of edits that I do, it works fine. And you'll see that the Intel graphics is doing a lot of the work here, helping out. Of course, we have quick sync support with this, with the hardware still. And what I'm going to do now is export this file, a minute of footage, and I'll show you how long it takes with the YouTube 4K preset. Okay, so it looks like not too much of an improvement here compared to the previous generation. All right, so you can say that was probably about 26 seconds, so more or less around the same as what we had with Media Lake. As for our built-in software, there was something called Intel Unison that did keep popping up. Now, this is so you can sync your phone and have it all on the same screen, whatnot. I haven't really looked into it too much, but I found it very annoying. I kept getting rid of it, but it kept nagging and popping up, so I uninstalled it. That's the only thing that was a bit of a problem. There's no McAfee antivirus that ASUS had put on this. No, all good. We have my ASUS, you can see down the bottom here, Story Cube from them too, and of course you have Windows Copilot. I've covered this in previous videos. I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with Copilot. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but in order to keep the video a bit shorter, I'm not going to jump into all of that. But what I do want to show you is some of the handy features we do have with my ASUS. So you can go into the system updates, you get BIOS updates, driver updates, very good, all handy. Device settings is the one I like. So you have your battery care mode, so you can limit the battery to 80% full charge. There's some other options in here. So fan profile, you can also use function F for this, so you can swap between them. Whisper mode being the quietest. This controls the power limit and the fan curve, the fan profile for it. So full performance mode for all my tests and benchmarks in this video. You've got your hibernation helper. You can allocate more RAM to the integrated graphics, that ARC 140V, but I'm going to leave it as default here. Noise cancelling settings, so I'm going to turn that off for my recording in front of the camera that I'll do later on. And you've got volume booster. OLED care is another very handy one to have because we've got 120 Hz OLED here. It's just going to help out, increase the longevity and reduce that risk of any burn-in with it. So that's the included software. Just briefly, there's a lot more on board, but just to show you and give you an idea, it is very useful software, and I don't find any of it being a problem apart from what I just said before about that Intel Unison software. And Intel Arc Gaming with the 140V, the top version. So here I have set Cyberpunk 2077 to the low preset, and all I did is turn off the resolution scaling. I don't want any of that stuff. I want to look at the raw performance here, and it's set to 1080p. Let's run here the in-game benchmark and see what result I can get. 41.21 for our average frame rate there with a low preset, 1080p. That's okay, but I have seen better from integrated graphics. So that was a overclocked slightly, tweaked RAM and high power limit HX 370. That's the Ryzen AI chip, which managed to get 53 average with the same exact settings here. Not exactly fair because it was running an 80 watt power limit. This is really only 30, so not bad considering the restrictions it has with power limits here. Next up is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 1080p again, and I do have it set to the high preset. And this is the end result here, 32 frames per second. Now, when I did run that same test on the Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, again, with all those tweaks and everything, I managed to get a lot higher than this. I got 43 frames per second. The Witcher 3, this is running with our ARC 140V graphics at 1080p lowest preset, and the performance is very good. It seems to always hover around 60 frames per second. Yes, I did turn off the 60 FPS cap on this, so I was hoping it may go a bit higher than the 60, but still very good. This is one of the best I've seen, in fact, the best I've seen yet, running on Intel integrated graphics to be able to achieve close to 60 frames per second here. Around this area of the map with a lot of NPCs around, a lot to render, it is doing very well here. So at 1080p, this game, I think is definitely playable on the ARC 140V. So with the thermals, we got up to 96 degrees, and yes, that did trigger thermal throttling. Now, just above the keyboard, when gaming especially, I noticed it gets hot. I took out my probe there, had a look at it. We got up to 51, 52 degrees Celsius there. So it does get quite hot to the touch just above that. So I can see why ASUS did put those little holes everywhere along the top just to help improve things a little bit there. So we got up to 38 watts with the package power. Now fan noise in the full speed mode, which is what I've been using for all the performance testing in the gaming, which is that one right there, the full speed mode. You will hear the fan, and it's a little loud, but when you're in the performance, but especially the standard mode and the whisper mode especially, you're not going to hear the fan that much at all. But in the full speed mode, I'll give you a worst case scenario right now. This is Cinebench, so it's been pushed to the max, and yes, you'll definitely hear that fan. So let's get on to a couple of other things I wanted to add. Linux performance that I love to show in my laptop reviews, unfortunately couldn't show it. I got it to boot, but I couldn't get any video out to use my capture card. It didn't recognize the ARC graphics, this version, the 140V. Now I tried out Linux Manjaro, the latest build, and compatibility seems to have just a few problems there with the drivers. So that's going to take a little while to come through and figure that one out. Maybe I need to try another distro, of course. So battery life on it, 72 watt hours. It is better than Meteor Lake. So Lunar Lake has some improvements there, and probably maybe, I think, because they're running less cores or less threads, is helping out with that battery life. I've been surprised by it. So light use, mind you, this is at the brightness set to 30%, documents, spreadsheets, YouTube, all that kind of light kind of work, nothing demanding like video editing. That is going to give you a runtime on this of 8 hours plus, about 8.5, maybe even 9 hours. It's really good. That's quite a bit more than what I would typically get out of Meteor Lake chips, so the previous generation. So there's a big improvement there. But as I showed you, the multi-core scores, if you're into your synthetic benchmarks and whatnot, that performance has dropped off. So that is one area where it's a little disappointing. But for me, I prefer more single-core performance for the kind of stuff that I do. And I still think that the scores we're seeing is decent performance. We've seen that big jump up in the, of course, integrated graphics. Now, this is a welcomed step up. The heat is on, of course, Intel with the Radeon 890M. That's got its 12 cores, but now we have the Arc 140V. And what I've seen so far, yes, looking very good. It's promising, of course, drivers, they're still early days yet, the Lunar Lake just coming out, so there should still be some further improvements there. Now, video editing performance, as I showed you, really good, and the days are gone now that you need dedicated graphics to edit 4K video, because now with this Arc graphics, and this especially with those RAM speeds, and then you've got Intel's quick sync and whatnot that's aiding it, especially with Adobe Premiere Pro, really fine, really good. Keyboard, fantastic. Touchpad, no changes there really from the previous Zenbooks I've covered, of at least this generation, the new ones for 2024. Really good, 120 Hertz OLED screen, great color gamut coverage that I've shown you. And the hinge feels very good. That's the furthest the screen will go back. So what are the things I don't like about it then? There has to be something right. Well, I don't like the fact that it comes with 1 terabyte of storage. I mean, that's good for most people, but I think the kind of spec that's on offer here, especially with the Core Ultra 9, the top Lunar Lake chip here, it should be 2 terabytes, right? And because it's onboard memory, the memory's all soldered on everything, we are not getting, with these chips, 64 gigabyte option yet. I don't know whether that's coming later on, but for now it's only 32 gigabytes. Wi-Fi 7, as mentioned a couple of times, is here, which is really good to have for future proofing. And it would be nice if it did have an additional SSD slot within this. The charging is at 65 watts maximum. Even if you've got a power delivery power supply that's 100 watts, it'll max out at 65, which I still think is all right. So all up, another fantastic laptop from ASUS. They do make some really quality, I think, laptops. And if you're after something that's more compact, portable, great screen, great build, and the new Lunar Lake, then this is definitely worth a look. Thanks a lot for watching this review.